Hi friends! In today's video, I'm going over 5 watercolor studio essentials, and this would be my highly recommended list for beginners to get started quickly and have a positive painting experience right from the beginning. Okay, so number 1 is quality paper. And I did do a video on why this is so important, and I will link that. If you haven't seen it already, check that out. And what it does is give you a better painting experience when you have quality 100% cotton paper to work with. You can, of course, use student grade and practice and do all your drills and play around with brush strokes and techniques. But when you're going to do a final project and you really want your outcome to look amazing, I highly recommend quality paper. It will be a game changer. You can also experiment with different brands. I love the Arches and the Winsor & Newton for the high quality paper, but you can always check out your local stores and see what's available closer to you. Okay, the second item on the list is a limited color palette. It is so easy to get overwhelmed with all the paint choices and whether you should do pans or tubes or go with a 12 color set or more. What I would recommend for beginners is start really small, start slow, and this will also help with learning color theory in the beginning. There are lots of great starter sets out there, and I'll link a few below that I would recommend. This set here on the right is a 6-set primary set from Daniel Smith. I also did a video on this, and I will link that as well if you're interested in what that looks like. And it's a great way to start your color theory mixing practice. So you get a set of warm and cool for each of your 3 primaries, and then mix your secondary and tertiary colors from those. When you start out with mixing your own colors, you get a really good understanding of what type of color palettes you really like and which colors you like to put together, and so I'd recommend starting with that, and then branch out into getting convenience colors so you can get your green, orange, and purples in tubes or pans. Okay, so for the third item, and this might seem really obvious, but keep paper towels or rags on hand. This is a double duty type of item. You can use it to soak up extra paint and water. You can use it to add texture or highlights into your work when your paint is still wet. You can go ahead and use your towel or rag and soak up any of that color, and it will come right up and show a natural highlight in your work. I am constantly using this to soak up any extra water in my paintbrush when I go to paint, so that will also avoid you getting too much water on your paintbrush when you go to paint. Okay, so for item number 4, I would recommend 2 jars for rinsing. One for your cool colors and one for your warm colors. Now this is not a perfect science. I end up just using my paintbrush and colors randomly sometimes because I just forget, but it's easy to just rinse out your water jars and then start over if that happens. What this does is keep your colors very clean and almost as close as possible to their true color. So if you're going to mix a warm color and you accidentally put in a mix of cool, if there's a little bit left on your brush, that will contaminate your original color. Okay, and for our last item, I would recommend a pointed round brush. Now you can get different brushes, like this is a flat and then also an oval, but what I tend to use the majority of the time are pointed round brushes. And so this might look different to you, but mostly if you're doing botanicals, I recommend this style of brush because you get a lot out of it. You can do fine lines, you can do your wider strokes for your petals and bigger stems, and it doesn't have to be super fancy professional. You can use a craft brush like this and still get a pointed end. And so if you're starting out, this is an economical choice, which is great for beginners. Of course, there are some great combination sets that you can purchase, and if you want to play around and experiment with those, you can get a little starter set as well and see all the different brush strokes that you can make. I will leave a link for options for those as well. So I thought it might be nice to do a little demonstration on why limited palette and 2 jars of water and pointed round brushes matter. And so I'll do a little demonstration here. This is my travel journal. It's an art journal with watercolor paper. and it's great for doing little experiments and technique testing or practice. Alright, so we'll start with that Princeton brush. It's an oval in the half size, and I can show you all the different marks you can get from it. And so it's not a bad brush, it's really great. Sometimes I will use it, but I just don't go to it that often. And so you can see that it can make some thin line marks and some wider strokes. And this brush holds a ton of water. And so you don't have as much of your redipping or remixing your colors as often as some of the smaller brushes do. Alright, so the second brush here is a flat brush, and you can see it's quite a sharper mark. It has that edge on it that's really precise, and so you can get some really fine points, but it is harder to make ovally shapes or round shapes for petals. So it's a good brush for doing a flat wash for a larger area, perhaps. Okay, so now I'm using my pointed round. This is my go-to brush, and you can see that that edge of that brush makes some really delicate lines. In fact, it makes better lines than any of the other ones because it's so sharp. And it's really great for doing petal marks as well. So depending on how much pressure you put on that brush, you can get some really nice wispy thin lines or some fuller petal shapes. So for botanical painting, I love using a round brush. I can also show you using the craft brush. This is also a round brush, thin marks. Because it is smaller, I'm dipping and re-wetting it quite a bit, but you get the same effect. It's just a little bit smaller, so it doesn't hold as much water. Okay, so now to just show you a little example of what contaminated water rinsing would look like. So if you want to keep your colors really clean, you would try to keep all your warm rinsing in one jar and all your cool rinsing in the other jar. Right, so for this example, I'll do both a set of warm and cool colors and then show you each of them a little bit contaminated. And so I'm putting in an orange and a yellow little circle area here. And then if I were to accidentally have my brush rinsed in a cool color, or there was a little bit left on that brush and I didn't get it all out by accident, then you can see how that orange instantly looks dirtied up and it's not as bright or pure of a color as it was originally. Okay, and then along the bottom left there are bluish greenish circles. And then if I were to accidentally have a little bit of a warm color on my brush and hadn't rinsed it really well, you can see that it gets instantly dirty as well. And so here's a little close-up, and you can see how that will affect your overall work. Just something to keep in mind. It's, like I said, not a perfect science, and I do occasionally mix them up as well, but it's a good habit to get into the practice of trying to keep your colors as clean as possible. Okay, and now I have a bonus item. It's a studio essential, and it's technically not really an item because it's not tangible. But I would say that if you're a beginner starting out, especially if you're learning anything new, something like watercolor, just to have patience and give yourself some grace. This is really about having a mindset of play and being gentle with yourself, because it can be hard when you're starting out. And these are a few of my test sheets that I was doing early on, and you can see that the paintings they're okay. I mean, they're just sort of practice sheets, but when you practice and you do something over and over, then it does get easier, it does get better, and it does come to you faster. It's like muscle memory, and that hand and mind coordination just flows a little faster. Also, don't worry about it being perfect. You can see this is not exactly cropped correctly. There's a narrow side and a wider side, so it's not symmetrical or centered. Not every leaf is perfect. What it is just a study. And if you approach each time you go to paint as just one more step to getting better in your process, so then you can go slow and really enjoy the journey. It's quite cliche, but the joy really is in the journey, and so you can get lost in the process of learning and enjoy just growing and developing. The other thing I would say is keep your artwork small when you start. So little bits of paper that you can cut down each of your watercolor sheets and just do little practice sheets. Even these little mini florals that I just recently put on my channel. This is a great beginner friendly practice study. And then as you grow, you can continue to keep adding little items together to make bigger elements like a wreath or a larger composition. And in this piece here, I used gold paint and black ink and did a loose floral study. And it was just about being playful and testing out how all these materials work together. And so getting over the perfection mindset, it is hard, but just start by making a mark. Just start anywhere on the page and then go from there and allow yourself to just play, make mistakes, and be okay with it not being perfect. I hope you enjoyed my little list of studio essentials, and that if you are a beginner, I hope you're encouraged, I hope you're inspired, and less overwhelmed by all the materials and choices that are out there. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.